Welcome to the Hybrid Human Podcast. My name is Zach Ryan, and each week myself and my co-host Chase Price will be exploring the intersection of wellness, business, entrepreneurship, and more.
Get ready to learn, grow, and evolve with us on the Hybrid Human Podcast. Ready to dive in?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Andy G, welcome to the pod, brother. We're live. Happy to have you. Long time coming, making this happen.
Yeah.
Couple years we've been talking about doing something like this, so I'm glad we're finally sitting down. For me, I'm just going to call it like it is. You're the most well-known realtor in Charlotte, in my opinion. I used you because I kind of knew you through social media before I even had reached out and met you. But I think you're that for a lot of people, and we want to dive into some of that personal branding a little bit later. But if you could just give us a little bit of spiel about, your a short-term, condensed version, summary of your come up and
Sure.
Your career path here in Charlotte.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me. It's fun watching the podcast grow and then finally being a part of it too. So I've been in Charlotte for almost 10 years now, and I have been a licensed real estate agent since I moved here, and then started in commercial real estate as like a sales broker, kind of same thing I'm doing now, but in commercial. Didn't sell anything, went completely broke, like had $1,000 left to my name, and then got into commercial real estate financing. And then from there, after 2 years of hating that, got into residential brokerage about six and a half years ago. So I've been doing this for a little while now. And ultimately got into the mindset of like, not necessarily wanting to be the number one real estate agent in the city, but I wanted to become the most popular realtor in Charlotte. And that was the goal. And that's where that mindset was sort of derived from being featured as a rising star in a real estate magazine. And when I knew that was coming out, I basically thought, like, where are most of my ideal clients? They're at work, at the bank, scrolling Instagram all day, in between meetings and emails and phone calls and whatnot. And so my goal was to be able to have the largest presence online, the most amount of eyeballs looking at me when I announced that I was featured as this rising star. And then that way I could have this bigger presence in the city without having to buy the billboards, right? Like that was my digital billboard and it was free. So that was kind of the mindset. That's how I built up. And that's been essentially like the root of everything that I've been doing the last 6 years.
Yeah. I had no idea that you started on the commercial side, actually. And I don't want to talk too much about real estate today. It's more about building your brand and that come up. I think Zach and I are on the same page with that because that's what you do on a daily basis, talk about real estate. So if people want to hear about that, they can go to your page, right?
And please do.
Yeah, please do. But as far as that, those original, those first 2 years in commercial, what was it like? It just didn't click with you. It wasn't suited to your personality. Why did you decide within 2 years to pivot over to the residential side?
I always wanted to help people. Like I always liked working with people and networking and whatnot. Like I am a serial networker, and I had always wanted to get into some sort of like business development role. And so when I was in commercial, I had thought that would be accomplished there, where instead of you sell a house, you make a couple grand. It's like you could sell a commercial property and make a couple $100,000. And as someone who studied finance in college, liked real estate and liked working with people, it felt like the perfect like mesh. It felt like the perfect way to combine all of those skills and all of the things that I enjoyed and wanted to do. And it just didn't work. It is a whole different kind of beast. And so what I compared it to was like commercial real estate, like in baseball. You step up to bat, commercial real estate, you go up to bat every single time you're trying to hit a home run, every single at bat. And in residential, you just get on base. You're just getting on base. It's a volume game. You're working with lots of different people. You go out to a bar in Charlotte and you could meet 100 people there. 90 of them either have bought or will buy a house within the last 2 years, right? 90 of the 100 people. Maybe one or two are actually involved and could help you with investing in commercial real estate if you're out somewhere in Charlotte. So it's a much smaller population. It's much more of an exclusive network, and it's very hard to get into. And when I did it, I was 24. I was brand new to Charlotte. I knew nothing about real estate. I didn't really know anyone here either. So I was kind of flying blind and cold calling, and did not like doing that.
I know you went to VT. Did you have family in Charlotte? Why did you pick Charlotte in general after college?
I always kind of liked it. So when we were at Virginia Tech, the ACC football championship was always hosted here in Charlotte at the Panther Stadium. Back when I was in school, we were actually really good at football. Like we had Tyrod Taylor, Cam Chancellor, like we had some studs. We were top 10. We were winning 10, 11 games out of 12 every year. And so we won the ACC 2 of the 4 years I was there. I think we played in the ACC championship a third year. So like we were down here a lot. And I always thought it was kind of a cool city. So it's 2.5 hours to Blacksburg from Charlotte. And then I have some close family that lives including one of my grandmothers in Asheville. So it's 2 hours over to them. And then I have some extended family from my other side of the family that live in like the Raleigh-Durham kind of area. So it's about 2.5, 3 hours to them. So it felt like this nice little spot right in the middle. And then to kind of the icing on the cake was Charlotte felt like it was destined to grow. And like, I am not that smart of a guy, but that was probably the smartest thing that I could have ever done, was move here in 2014, knowing that the city had to grow, because I liked the fact that it had an NFL team that people actually rallied around and people showed up for. It had an NBA team that was the season they actually switched back to the Hornets. So people were very excited about the NBA, which when you have multiple pro sports in a city, at least in some of these tertiary cities, like not like the Chicagos and LAs and Miami, but you're in like Baltimore and Philly and Charlotte, Scottsdale, like those kinds of things. When you have pro sports teams that people actually rally around, it changes the culture of the city. And so that was something that I was really intrigued by. And then you throw all of that into having a huge banking culture, having a huge corporate culture here that's very strong, and not just like it felt like a city that had an identity, that was a very strong identity, that they weren't like stuck in this little box either. So it felt like this perfect place to just settle down and build roots and build out a real estate business. And the last 10 years have been wild here.
It's grown like crazy. I've been here 5.5 years, and it's like doubled. I feel like in size. And, you know, Uptown is now South End. It's kind of meshing together and into Loso and whatnot. So crazy. I want to touch on social media a bit. You talked about the digital billboard concept. And we were chatting before, you know, the cameras were rolling, but such a cool concept to me, how you just take like a free platform and put your time and sweat equity and probably investment dollars into growing this platform to have a lifelong billboard, not a month at a time, but something that's free that people can click on day in and day out. Talk through the strategy behind that, how you pursue, you know, growing that, and kind of the content behind it.
One of the big things with that was trying to be very intentional about who I was putting my content in front of and what they were seeing when they came to my page at first. So what I was doing when I was building out a lot of the Instagram page was actually going to local restaurants and following people who were engaging with their content. Because if you went to Custom Shop last night for dinner, right? Yeah. If you're following Custom Shop on Instagram, chances are you probably either have been there because you visited or you live in Charlotte, right? You're not sitting in Texas following Custom Shop. And Fair. So that's where my thought process was, okay, if you're not only following them, but you're interacting and engaging with them, if they're posting some cocktail or some new food that they have on the menu, and you're interacting with that, chances are you want to know what's going on in Charlotte, especially like these newer restaurants and newer bars, newer clubs, like whatever it was. And so I started really trying to engage with people that were engaging on these different local pages. And then from there, you just wanted to make sure, or I made sure that my page was very clean and very concise and very like well branded. And that way, when people did come to my page, so if they come and they look at my Instagram page, it's like they know what they're getting. They know what I'm about. They can understand that yes, I know what I'm talking about with real estate, but also like kind of a normal dude and like kind of fun to hang out with. And I am going out and trying out new places and doing things around town all the time. So I wanted to make sure that people had something to see that they would like when they came to my page. But the overarching theme was just trying to engage and interact with people who are already interacting with local pages.
Yeah, that's a very smart strategy. It makes a ton of sense to me. Did you have a framework behind that when you kicked it off, or was it like trial and error? We'll figure it out, and then as it expands, we'll put a framework around it to find that niche and sort of hone in on our audience?
So to be totally transparent, this was back before Instagram started blocking a lot of automations. And so one of my good friends and fraternity brothers had a company that did automating following and unfollowing of people. And so he taught me how to do this. And I literally bought a second computer because you have to have this program up and running constantly. I set up a VPN. I had this program running. I had multiple proxies for it. So you're scrambling your location. And literally you're saying like, hey, if someone likes this page or if someone comments on something, just go in and follow them. And it was automatically doing that. And I would get 100 new followers every day it was about a year that we were allowed to do this, because this was in 2018, but that like kind of kicked everything off. And then Instagram was like, this is not cool. You can't be doing this anymore.
Did you know that was a thing?
Oh yeah. If you were in the space at that time, everybody was doing it because it was like an easy way. It was the follow unfollow thing. So if you were trying to grow at the time, you were probably doing that.
I had no idea. Maybe I'm just ignorant to social media. I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah. And I like have no problem talking about it, right? Because a lot of people who have big pages and stuff, if you really look through the big thing is like, if you look through people's pages that are big or like these big numbers, you can tell if there's like a lot of purchased followers, purchased likes. Yeah. And so that's where I was like, this is what I'm doing. I figured out how to do it. It's definitely a little bit of an advantage compared to the average person, but it's like, I took the time to figure out how to do that. I had a friend who taught me how to do that. And we were only able to really do it for about a year, because then they started flagging accounts and you could get in some deep, deep trouble with them.
It's like, don't hate the player, hate the game a little bit,
Yeah. But I have no problem admitting it, because it's like that was how I kind of got up and running and got the first few thousand followers. But it really got me in front of a lot of people in the city, because it was very intentional about people in the city, people who are engaging with accounts in the city. And then, but then the other piece to that a lot of people don't think about is like, you actually have to work that. And you have to actually network. You have to actually build these relationships with people, and not just start following, unfollowing, and then thinking that people are going to want to buy houses with you, right? When Chase called me, it wasn't just like, oh, like whatever, I don't care who you are. I'll help you sell or buy or whatever. It's like, no, we built a relationship, and then we worked together. It wasn't just because he saw this and like nothing else, right? Like, you have to actually build these relationships with people, because we met actually through Chris Ramsey.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So
that's right.
That's where it's like, you saw what I was doing, but we built this relationship on the front end. So there's this level of trust before helping him with the biggest purchase of his life, right? So that's where a lot of people don't understand with the social media. I always say it will supplement the work that you are doing. It will never substitute the work. Right?
Yeah. 100%. We talked about this a couple times in the past about leveraging just being top of mind. Like, I didn't know you personally, but I knew about your Instagram or your presence on social, and I knew Chris knew you. So it's an easy intro. And that's how I try to think about, even with our business and all my personal stuff too, is just like, just stay top of mind. Because everybody's going to be constantly, like, even if they don't know you, they're going to feel like they do. And we can get into that with your content too. But I also love the early on arbitrage, man, like using any leverage that you can, because all platforms in the beginning stages kind of have some form of this, where you can take advantage a little bit. You can hack the mainframe, cheat the system for a little bit. And it's not really cheating, because you're just like it's just a hustle, right? You figured out an arbitrage and that other people maybe not have. So take advantage of that as long as you can. Once it switches, it switches. And you know, hopefully it was good while it lasted, but I do love that. I did the same shit back in the day because I was trying to do like travel influencer shit. So we were all doing it. I wasn't doing it to that scale where I had like a separate computer on hopping VPNs, like maybe mining some Bitcoin or whatever else you were doing at the time.
Trust me, I wish I was mining Bitcoin.
Yeah, especially then, right?
Yeah, holy cow, I wouldn't be selling houses right now.
Yeah, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Along with that persona, have you kind of leaned into this kind of Andy G mentality where like on social, I'm Andy G in real life? Like, you know, I'm a little bit different, but it's like you almost have to build up this persona per se.
Yeah, and to an extent, I mean, that's kind of natural for me where it's, my fiance jokes that it's like the Andy G effect. Like we'll go out to dinner and run into people. Or last night we were out at Rosemont and literally someone that is one of the agents on my team, their neighbor, sent a picture over his shoulder and you could see me in the background sitting there. And it's like, that happens. But like I lean into that because I love it. Like again, it comes full circle with wanting to be the most popular real estate agent in Charlotte, right? Like that's what happens when you do that. And so I personally love it. And it's like, I am very much someone who thrives off of talking to people and being around people and like being out and about and just doing stuff all the time. And so to me, it's like, it doesn't even feel as much like a persona per se, but it's like just who I am. Yeah. Right. And it goes back to some of the mindset stuff with, it's not, like we were talking about before, where it's not work-life balance. It's how do I integrate work and life? And that's where it's like leaning into that, the Andy G like persona is me integrating work and life because that's like literally what I had always wanted to be able to do.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Do you find like it's hard for you to have that, you know, Andy, I'll call it Andy versus Andy G, like having that, delineation between I'm out and I'm meshing this work and life, thing that you just discussed versus, I'm at home, I'm just hanging out, I'm doing my thing. Like, is it hard for you to kind of turn that brain off? Because you're talking about social media, you're talking about, real estate is 24/7, listings and putting in offers and, meeting with clients and putting notes in and all these different things. Like, is it difficult for you to delineate between those two?
It can be. Yeah, it certainly can be. And there are times where I'm like, I just want to shut it off, like, and just relax. And there are times where you just can't. And there are also times where I don't want to go to an event or something that I feel like I need to. And then chances are that's the one where you're going to run into someone who's like, oh, actually, I need to buy. Or, oh, we actually have been needing to sell. Like, I've been meaning to reach out to you. That's the one time where you really don't want to go and you just force yourself to go is the one time that someone's going to come up to you and say, I've been meaning to reach out to you.
Yeah.
And he'll be very glad that you went. So as far as like separating the two and being able to relax, like it is tough. But that's where luckily, like I have built up a business over the last 6.5 years that now I'm starting to put different systems and pieces in place so that I don't have to be the one that's doing literally everything, right? When you read the E-Myth, it talks about like the technician and the manager and the entrepreneur, I think is the third one. And it's like,
Visionary.
I was always what?
The visionary.
Yeah. And it's like, I was the one having to do all of that for so long that now that I'm engaged and want to be able to like actually have a little more of a work-life balance, it's like, it's nice to be able to start putting pieces in place, building out my team. And that way I can do that, right? I have someone who manages my emails now. So I don't have to, I can get out of a meeting like this during the week and I don't have 200 emails, 40 text messages, 3 missed calls, and 15 DMs on Instagram.
Right.
I don't have to worry about the emails. And if something pops up that's important, like she now knows what is important, what's not as important, what can be answered by the end of the day, what can be answered by the end of the week. And like, even just that has significantly lowered my stress level on a daily basis, which has helped a ton.
I was actually going to ask you about that because every time I reach out to you, you're always like very responsive. It's usually on text. And this is something I suck at. So that's why I wanted to ask you about it. being so responsive, like how do you do that? Because for me, I have to like shut off my notifications to get into deep work or like to be productive. It seems like you don't do that. Maybe you do, I don't know, but you're always just so responsive. I'm like, how the hell does he do that? Keep up with everything, even on DM or whatever it is. So how do you maintain that level of responsiveness while still being able to get shit done without getting too distracted?
Well, I keep my phone on do not disturb and on focus mode 24/7. Not a single notification comes through my phone except for phone calls. Because if someone needs to call me, chances are it's usually there's a reason why they want to call. So phone calls come through and calendar notifications come through so I don't miss something. That's it. Like literally, those are the only two things that come through on my phone. If we're sitting here and my phone starts buzzing, it's literally because I'm getting a phone call and nothing else. And then focus mode is so that when I am actually using my phone, I'm not just getting blown up with all kinds of notifications because it's nonstop. But then like I've always been a high communicator. I've always kind of been that way. And then you couple that with like the competitive nature of being a real estate agent in Charlotte with 20,000 other real estate agents. My mindset is like, look, if you text me and I just ignore you for however long, like you can just text someone else and they'll answer. And it's like, okay, I'm going to answer because sometimes it literally is as simple as that. Like I have lost clients because they're like, well, you never answered, which is like my nightmare. Like as someone who's a high communicator, it's like the worst thing that someone could say is like, oh, well, dude, I reached out and you never responded. And we went and bought this house. And it's like, that is like, that will get under my skin so unbelievably fast. And I'm a big like inbox to zero kind of guy. Like I hate seeing the notifications because my mindset around it is if someone texts me, then they're waiting to hear something back from me. And so that's kind of how I've always been.
Do you use Superhuman?
No, but I've heard about it.
I use it. It's awesome. You said inbox to zero. That's like the big thing on Superhuman. I'm curious so I know you guys were talking about some like voice thing that you use. What are some of the hacks that you use to stay on top of your shit?
Yeah. So this one app, one of my good friends showed me a couple years ago. It's called Brain Toss. It's like $4 and
I'm writing it down.
It's amazing because you can literally, what it does is you can either type out, take a picture, like type out a note, take a picture, or speak into it and it will transcribe it. And as soon as you hit that you're done with it, it automatically just emails it to you, which is nice because then whether you, like for me now having someone monitor my inbox, I can either say like, this is for me to do later, or this is for Farah to do right now. And so it's really good when you're having like quick conversations with people. If they're like, hey, I need you to like change this search, or hey, can you like add this to my search, or can you just like check on this real quick for me, or can you talk to this person? It's like, it's almost just like a different way of having a to-do list, right? Instead of going into the reminders app and plugging it in because maybe I'll forget to look at that. I'm going through my email. I'm always looking at email. So it's like, why not just put it right in front of that? Put it right in front of me, because it's like, I'm just trying to reduce like the friction and forgetting about things. Cause there's, like you said, like we're getting pulled a million different directions every minute that you need to be able to make sure that you're not missing stuff. And so that's where for me, for some of the different task-based reminders, it's like, that's the best way to put it right in front of myself, because then I'll make sure as I'm going through my emails, I need to do that.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm going to start using that because that's where, even with my team, I'm like, if you have an action item for me, don't Slack it, don't text me, email it to me. Because that's where I'm like, all right, this is where my get shit done area is. So I love that.
Oh yeah. It's the best.
I got to look into that. How do you structure your day every day, Monday through Friday? Is it same thing every day, same process, or is it I'm all over the place and, you know, getting a million things done in different avenues?
I know Monday, Wednesday, Friday where he's at. First thing in the morning, YMCA, baby.
That's right. At the Dowd.
I love it.
Watching Chase run and lift heavier weights than I can lift. But
deadlift is mile time.
Yeah. That looked pretty intense.
It was fun. It was a fun little challenge.
But no, daily, like day to day, it's kind of all over the place. but they're starting to become a little bit more structure, which is good. I always start with like the workout routine, because to me that affects my mindset more than having the worst day in real estate. If I can't work out, like I'm already waking up feeling behind because I'm not doing that. And so Monday mornings, Wednesday mornings, and Friday mornings, I'm at the YMCA, usually walking in there sometime around like 5:30, but alarm is going off around like 4:45. So I'm getting up, I'm getting ready to go. Takes me a little bit just to get out the door, but it's like I like to get my day started before everyone else, right? And so, or before everyone who's not at the Dow at 5:30 in the morning. And then on Tuesdays, I do hot yoga in the evenings usually, which is nice because it's like I wake up in the mornings on Tuesdays and I already know like mentally I'm going to be a little off that day. So like by the end of the day, I'm looking forward to that reset so much.
Just unwind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's like you just come out of there so clear. And then on Thursday mornings, I go with my fiance to Barry's boot camp at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And she was a D1 athlete. And so she kicks my ass in there. But it's fun. And it's something that like we can do together. I mean, she's literally over there as we're filming this right now, working out. And she'll go there 6 or 7 days a week. I go with her once, but it's nice to like mix in like a little bit of weightlifting and cardio at the gym, at the Dowd, and then yoga and Barry's boot camp, like the HIIT workouts. And so those are like, I structure everything around that because that affects my mentality, my mindset for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And then usually I come home from the gym and like that is when I am the most like absolute hands down most productive all day.
Same.
And so I will sit there in my office with a cup of coffee and just hammer through work for like an hour, hour and a half. And it will be, you'll feel like you did 3 or 4 hours worth of work in that hour. And I just, headphones are in, music is blasting, and I'm just powering through stuff, whether it's emails, whether it's setting up systems. It used to be like catching up on stuff from the day before, because a lot of the times I'm going to events or dinners or drinks meetings, and then you get a little behind at night. So usually it'd be like catching up from the day before. Now it's a little bit of that, and then a little more of like trying to implement some new systems for the team, trying to put some things in place that we can turn on for the day. And so it's unbelievable how productive you can be like right then. And I like that because that's when it's like not socially acceptable to be doing business between other people, right? So like we'll text each other because we'll see each other at the gym or something, but it's not like, hey, let's set this up, let's do that, hey, can you show this home for me? Like none of that kind of stuff is happening at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But I know that like 8 o'clock rolls around and my phone starts ringing like immediately. Mm-hmm. So I like to have everything prepared. I like to be showered and ready to go by like 8 o'clock, because then it's just, my fiance jokes because I say it all the time, but it's like we're off to the races and it's just nonstop. Like the second that it hits 8 o'clock, we're going. Mm-hmm. So, and that's where, you know, sometimes in the morning I'll have friends or business partners who will call me while they're doing a long drive and we're catching up on stuff. And next thing you know, 30 minutes later, it's 8:30, you're getting ready to go to more meetings, emails already backing up, text messages are backing up, and it's like you're already playing catch up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I try not to do a lot of meetings in the morning that I have to go to, just because I like to make sure that I can like stay in front of my computer. Even if I'm on a Zoom call, at least I can be on my computer. I have 2 screens and an iPad and my phone. So the iPad has a keyboard, so that's usually like text messages or email and whatnot. And then I have my phone for whatever I need that for, and then I have 2 screens. So I have like a full control center when I'm at home. Yeah.
I love that. And that's one thing I really love about you is how optimized you are. One of those things being that you sometimes will like hire a driver. If you're if you have a lot of places to be for the day, you're just like, fuck it, let me get my guy to take me around because I can work while he's driving me. And that way, you know, I'm being more efficient. I'm saving more time. Talk a little bit about that. And then are there any other ways that you're kind of optimizing for, you know, your day on a daily basis?
The driver was a game changer. I haven't actually hired him in probably a couple months, but usually it's about once a month where I need a driver. And it also depends on where where a lot of my business is at the time, right? So if I'm working with a lot of people in Union County and you're driving 40 minutes for every showing or every meeting at a house or every listing appointment, whatever it is, it's like a 40-minute drive means you're instantly an hour and a half in the car, bare minimum. Like just to go to that meeting, hour and a half in the car, which is very dangerous to be texting and emailing and all this kind of stuff while you're driving. And like, I do it, but I don't like to do it. And then I also know that like, if I'm going straight from some meeting that's kind of far, whether it's up at the lake or further south, from like meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, and I can see that it's going to be back to back all day and driving to everything, I'll just hire a driver. He picks me up in the morning whenever I need him to pick me up. And then I'll just sit in the back with my phone plugged in and my laptop on my lap. And then I can the idea is you don't get as far behind. And the other thing that I think about when I look at my calendar, like leading up to needing a driver, is do I have a busy day and something at night or not? Because if you have an event at night and you have a busy day and you're driving up to Mooresville and you have a couple meetings and then then you have a lunch meeting, like you have a meeting in Mooresville in the morning and then a lunch meeting in Noda, and then you go to another showing in South End, and then you go to South Park, and then you have to go somewhere else. And then you go home real quick to scarf some food down, and then you go to an event. It's like, there's no time to be in front of a computer. So like, that's my way to make sure I get computer time, because then, you know, you can stay ahead of things to an extent when you're using your phone driving between meetings all day. But it's not the same as being able to have your laptop open, even if you're sitting in the back of a car. So it's a huge like efficiency hack. It's not cheap, but you know, it's not like I'm hiring him 5 days a week and he's just sitting around like outside while I have nothing to do. Like I try to be very efficient with that. And if I plan on using him for the whole day and then 1 o'clock rolls around and it's not as crazy as I was anticipating, and I have like an hour or two before the next meeting, I'll just let him go. And it's like, we're good for the day. Trying to think of any other like efficiency hacks that I have, but it really is, it's all like, for me, it's about just trying to being able to communicate with people as fast as possible. So
yeah, it makes sense.
The next efficiency hack will be letting my director of operations monitor and manage my text messages, which is going to be very scary.
I know. I was going to be like, are you the one responding to me these days? I hope it's still you.
It is. It is. She doesn't usually like answer emails unless it's like someone saying, hey, just letting you know. And it's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have some friends that have their operations staff like monitoring and answering text messages and stuff, and that's where I'm like, that's a little scary.
It's a little much. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about influences for you. So I know Ryan Serhant is a big influence for you. Have you heard of him before?
I have, yeah.
Okay. So he's like this mogul in New York. Where was he before New York? Or was he always in New York? He kind of
for real estate, yeah, he was always in New York. He was part of a different firm, and then he opened his own firm in 2020.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about how he's influenced you and how much you take from his content and how he's built his brand and incorporated into yours.
Yeah, I mean, he would probably be the biggest role model I've had with the personal branding and business branding, because he is just very authentic with who he is. And like, I've met him a handful of times, and like, he is who you think he would be too, which helps, right? It helps solidify like that what I'm trying to do is it works. He like, I literally just figured it out by watching all of his YouTube videos all the time and just kind of seeing how he presents himself in a way that is engaging, that people want to watch, that you don't feel like you're getting bored by what he's putting out there. So yeah, I mean, I joined his course. I became like a pro member and an ambassador for the course. And so I actually, with that, got to go meet him in 2020, which was super cool because I got to sit across the table from him for an hour uninterrupted and just ask whatever I wanted to ask. And that hour goes really, really freaking fast.
Yeah.
And so then after that, I got to meet with his personal branding team. And it was cool to like, the idea behind that was I wanted to go up there with enough content and enough like branding that they had something they could sink their teeth into versus going up there like totally cold, like help me build out a YouTube channel. Like I had already filmed for 5 months at that point, right? So I just got into filming and putting videos out on YouTube, like long form and short form on Instagram, and went up there and was like, here's my YouTube channel, here's my Instagram page and everything. And like his first personal branding guy who helped him blow up literally pulled up my YouTube page on the TV and goes, I don't know what you do. And I was like, holy shit. Because most people, like, you know, you send it out to people and they're like, oh, this is awesome, whatever. And like, it's more like cheerleader. And this guy straight up was like, I look at your YouTube channel and I can't tell within 5 seconds what you do. That's a problem. And I was like, making notes. We're going to change the heading and change everything. Like, so, yeah, they've been a huge role in like how I've built out my business, just because when you're in real estate, there's millions and millions of real estate agents in America, and you need to be able to figure out who you want to model your business after. And so for me, that was it. Yeah. And he's just he's like a fun guy, and he's like very entertaining. So, yes. Yeah, that was a huge piece for me, just building out my like personal brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about content on the content side? So you talk about his stuff where it's like, you know, you guys are real estate agents, but you don't want to do the same song and dance every single video. Like, here's a property. We're going to walk the property today. Let's talk about this neighborhood. Let's do this. What are some of the things you've learned over the past couple of years about putting out content and keeping people kind of engaged and on the edge of their seat, wanting to get more content from, even if, you know, everybody's not in a season where they're going to buy or sell, but you want them to kind of still engage with what you got going on?
It's interesting because it changes all the time, right? So, and anyone who tells you they know exactly what to do is lying. That, or they're just pounding their chest hoping that they can. There's a reason why they're telling you that. Maybe they're trying to sell something. My mindset around the content was, I want someone who's sitting in another city getting ready to move to Charlotte, because Charlotte is a very transient city. We're gaining a lot of new residents, literally over 100 new residents every single day. And so people are Googling Charlotte all the time. They're Googling neighborhoods, they're Googling restaurants, they're Googling different things, and they want to learn about the city. And so I like doing a little bit of a hybrid method with what I'm posting on YouTube, where it's content about the city and then content about buying and selling, and then content for entrepreneurs and real estate agents. And so it's a little bit of everything, while then also sprinkling in houses that I have listed that are either really unique or very expensive, and some collaborations with different business owners. And I did a lot more of that when I first started, and those videos did okay, right? I'd go to the Lamborghini dealership, or I'd go to Windsor Jeweler, and I'd do these kind of collaborative videos. They're trickier to put together, but they are good. And it's just, the whole idea is I want someone to learn something every time I put a video out. And so, to the point that when I'm filming, I'll actually ask the videographer when we're done, like, did you learn anything today? Like, did I say anything that you didn't know, or anything that you're like, oh, that was actually really good to know? And with that, doing the neighborhoods is a very scalable way to consistently put out this content, right? We'll never run out of areas to talk about. I may run out of topics to talk about, but I could always just pick a new neighborhood. And so the idea was, when I first started, I started in Uptown, went to South End, and worked my way around Uptown, and then started going further out, because I wanted to make sure that people who were moving to Charlotte had something to watch and something there they could learn. And I've sold a lot of houses because of that. And people literally will say, oh, well, you know, we were watching this video in Myers Park, and then, you know, you were the second one, and we just liked your personality. So it's a way to showcase my personality, be very authentic. I've made some very good friends because of cold reach outs from YouTube. And so it's very interesting how that works, and it's evergreen, and it's the biggest thing is that it is Googleable, right? And so now we're trying to go a little more niche with the different neighborhoods and whatnot. So instead of saying the 28209 zip code, it's huge. It's like, here are the different neighborhoods and we're putting out specific neighborhood videos. So someone wants to learn about Madison Park, I'll be posting a video on that in a couple weeks. And that way we can get really granular with it versus going super wide. It was good to start wide and now we're going deeper with it.
As you get more granular, are you trying to get more upmarket, meaning more expensive, more exclusive neighborhoods, or are you more so it's still a volume thing, we're just getting more granular from a neighborhood perspective?
I don't like to just do the most expensive neighborhoods and most luxurious neighborhoods and whatnot, because it turns a lot of people off, right? Because if I'm going through a neighborhood where the average home price is $2 million, and that's all I'm talking about all the time is $1, $2, $3, $4, $10 million properties, the average sale price in Charlotte is like $450.
Yeah.
Right. So why just go through those? Obviously, there is a reason to go through those because people who have that kind of budget are watching. And if you can sell a $2 million house instead of $400,000 houses, there's a big difference, right? But the overwhelming majority of the people in Charlotte aren't able to afford a $2 or $3 million house. And so I like to make sure that I'm showing everyone everything, because maybe there is a neighborhood that someone didn't know about. But I would say like it's good to like hit a little bit of everything. And when we were going through the zip codes, what I would do when it was a little more broad, we would pick like a luxury area, a mid-level area, and like an affordable first time or investor area in each zip code. And it's like, here's what you want to look for.
Love it. Yeah, it makes total sense. On your page, you talked about, the Atomic Habits book in little pieces. I want to kind of touch on that. The whole tiny changes for remarkable results. As you look at your content, I know Chase brought up your strategies around content. How have you changed and evolved the content to support that strategy?
Oh man, honestly, just making it, the idea is reducing the friction with it so it can become a habit. And it is absolutely a muscle you have to build. Filming is exhausting. Standing in front of the camera all day, walking around to essentially like 30 different locations in a day is exhausting. You get home, like, I remember getting home the first couple of times and was just absolutely gassed.
Yeah, you're mentally taxed.
Yeah. It will destroy you.
I have no experience with that, so I've never done that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
but I
like,
can imagine it's tiring.
It is. And the other key is like, you have to remember, like, I'm still trying to work, right? I'm still putting deals together. I'm still negotiating. I'm still doing all these different things in between turning on the camera and turning off the camera. And we're hopping in the car, going to the next location, film real quick, hopping back in the car, go to the next location. And it's like, so as far as make like the Atomic Habits piece of it, that's where like the big thing is just forcing yourself to do it. And what I from the beginning had always done to kind of help with forcing myself to do it was literally just having it on the calendar. And so every time I had a meeting with the film crew, it was always, when are we filming next? And when are we doing our next strategy call? Because then if it's already on the calendar, it will happen. And being intentional with that. The other piece to it that makes it easy to be a habit is it's not cheap. So if you're paying all that money, like, I don't want to just waste it. So it's I would say with that, like, overall though, the big thing is just actually doing it, right? And that's where, when I sat in front of Ryan Serhant, I asked him specifically, I was like, this whole film crew that's standing around here that I hired and brought here that I'm using, their whole goal is to get as many realtors to work with them as possible, doing the same thing that I'm doing. So what do I do, right? Everyone's going to be doing the same thing. And this was in the beginning of 2020, like COVID had started, like we were in the thick of it with COVID, and every realtor was starting to understand, like, we need to be on video. Like, I started posting videos, and I was the first one that really started posting videos like that in the real estate space in Charlotte. And so a lot of realtors started doing that. And I asked Ryan, I said, what do I do when they have 50 clients and they're all doing the same thing? He goes, just keep doing it. Just out endure them and watch them start falling off. And it's true. I mean, it's because it's expensive. It's a grind. It's a lot of work. It's mentally taxing when you're out there. And then what happens is you just have to keep telling yourself like, it's worth it. I actually got really lucky, and people hate this when I say it, but because with video, it does take a while. It's not just instant. But literally my first video that I posted, one of my friends put it on his Instagram story, and his neighbor fired her realtor and hired me because she liked my vibe and my style. And 2 weeks later, we were under contract on a house. So awesome. I can say like, yes, it's very first video, it worked.
Yeah.
But I knew that wasn't supposed to happen that way. And so to me, it was almost just like, okay, cool. I got the gratification, and I got like like I can see that it works. So now I'm just going to keep doing it. And I knew that it wasn't going to happen every single video. I knew it wasn't supposed to happen that way, but it was like, okay, well, it works. So I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And a lot of agents, it takes 6, 8, 10 months before it really starts working. And it's a lot of effort. So going into it, knowing that it wasn't supposed to work like that, and then just getting one immediately, it certainly helped, because it helped me justify what I was doing.
Love it.
Let's talk about building kind of your business, your brand, but more like the team and the structure behind that. You did switch firms in the last, I guess that was like what, year or two ago, within the last 2 years. Talk to me about that. Like, what does that mean for somebody that's not in real estate? Is that like switching teams, like being a Major League Baseball player going from one team to another? Like, explain that process and what that's like, and then how you're thinking about building your team out with EXP and what that looks like as well.
Sure. So I started with a firm in Charlotte. I was there for 5 years. And the way that firm is structured is there's franchises everywhere. And so as I started growing, I became one of the top agents in the office. And as cool as that is, and I always say, like, as someone who has a big ego, and I'm not shy to admit it, like, I've got big egos, especially like most real estate agents, especially, like, we're egomaniacs. And so I love being pat on the back and having my ego stroked, seeing my name at the top of the leaderboard every single month. But at a certain point, like, it gets old. And you start wondering, like, okay, well, how am I going to grow? Who am I going to learn from? Who can I, like, just try and get more knowledge from when everyone's trying to get that from me right now, because I'm the guy at the top. And so the thought process was, it's time to stop being the big fish in a small pond right now. I need to be the small fish again. And so that was where moving to EXP made a lot of sense, because I could go become a part of a group. So the way EXP is structured is there's almost 90,000 real estate agents. And because they have all kinds of recruiting incentives as well, with their revenue share that they give you based on how many people you bring into the company and if they're selling or not. Which, yes, it's a pyramid, but it's also a very kosher pyramid and not multi-level marketing. And it's literally just, if you come in and sell here, it's like a referral bonus. It's no different than being at Bank of America or somewhere, and they give you a referral if you bring in a new employee who does a good job. And so because of that, it creates this culture. And some people were smart enough to essentially form their own, like, organizations within the firm. And so that's where I made sure I partnered with this one organization that the two guys at the top last year, they both run teams. One sold $480 million in real estate sales in 2022. And the other one sold like $371 million. They have like 100 people on their team. They've got billboards everywhere. They're both out in San Diego. And it's like, literally, these guys are good friends. They're both in San Diego. And between the two of them, they sold almost $1 billion in real estate in 1 year.
Wow.
And
incredible.
It's insane. And there are, I think, 36 of the top 50 teams at EXP are part of this, like, group. So I was like, I'm going to go become a part of that group so I can start learning from them, because it's not even talking to those guys that's important. It's talking to their director of growth, talking to their director of sales, director of operations, all the people who are, like, actually making shit happen every day. That's who I'm trying to network with and build my relationships with, because sure, the Rainmaker, like, they're great and building relationships with those guys too. But the operations staff, they're the ones actually running the day to day. They're the ones that when the Rainmaker goes, oh, this program like Brain Toss is great. And then you go, how do you use that? And you're like, I don't even fucking know. Like they use it. And so, or Monday.com or how they use their CRMs and things like that. So it was basically for me personally, I wanted a way to be able to have access to a whole new group of people that are just insanely high achievers and high performers, right? I mean, these guys are making millions on real estate commission. Like their commission that they're taking home every day is millions. And then for my team, I wanted to be able to also give them access to all of these people. But what these guys do in particular is tons of masterminds. We have like 8 different masterminds every single week that you can join, whether it's specifically for production or they have a women only one, they have a solo agent one, they have 2 different ones for agents based on production. So like I'm in the generals mastermind now too, where you have to either sell $50 million in a year or 100 houses in a year, and then they let you in. So it's literally the top performers in this group. And there's like 200 people out of it's like 5,000 or 6,000 people in this little group. And like 200 of us are in this elite group within the group. So it's like, then they have, there's of the 8, 7 of them are around production, the different masterminds that we have every single week. 1 is around recruiting and bringing in agents and revenue share if you want to do that. But for my team, what I like is my director of operations can sit on the operations mastermind. So she gets on an hour every single week, talks to all of that, excuse me, all of the administrative staff on everyone's different teams, all of the operations people. And she always comes back with new stuff and new systems we can implement. But then for the production mastermind, it's every Monday and it's 1 hour. And if I don't get something out of that hour, I guarantee someone on my team learned something, got motivated by something, pulled something out of there. So if I'm sitting there and I'm on phone calls or doing something and not paying attention because to me it felt like it wasn't really relevant, my team group chat is blowing up. And so that's why I really like it too, because it gives not only just me new access, new opportunities, but it gives all my team members and the agents on my team so much opportunity to get value out of being there through some of the relationships that I've been building there. And it's like, it was like a new challenge. And I like the fact that going there, I'm a nobody, right? Mm-hmm. These guys are selling $500 million worth of real estate in a year. They don't care who I am. They don't know who I am. They don't owe me anything. And so I kind of like that, because the other thing is once you start selling a lot and you become a popular agent in town, like you become very highly sought after. And it was almost kind of like nice to go somewhere where this group literally didn't even care who I was. Mm-hmm. Cause it's like, oh, okay, challenge accepted. Like, let me prove myself now. And all I could think was when that happens, I'm going to be elevating closer and closer to these guys and just leaving everyone else in the dust, right? Instead of hanging out with everyone and doing all this over here, I'm working with these guys all the way up here. And if it even gets me slightly closer to where they are, I'm way above and beyond everyone else. And so that was kind of the mindset where it's like, all right, I'm going to go get access to this where there's track record. They're not promising me anything. And then we'll see what happens. And the business has grown. I've been building out my team. I'm putting more operations staff in place, which is going to be a huge help. And then you couple all of that with revenue share and stock that they give agents. And so there's so many different ways that I can, like different verticals that I can make money just from being at the firm without having to do anything or buy anything or pay for anything. Mm-hmm. All I'm doing is just going out and selling houses every day, talking to agents, talking to buyers, talking to sellers. And the revenue share now is, so my team, I have a director of operations, I have a closing coordinator in-house, I have a sales manager and coach on the team, and then I have 4 agents. And so one of them we literally just onboarded this week. And so between all of us, so that's what, 8 people. So I have 8 people there. And then within my whole organization of people that I've recruited or that they've recruited with EXP is about 30 people. And that literally is bringing in anywhere from like $1,000 to $3,000 a month in revenue share. That's totally passive. And so that's just with 30 people. And some of these guys that I'm associating with, like and affiliated with, they have 5,000 agents. Like they're pulling in millions every year from this passively. So it's interesting because there's all these different verticals where I can bring in money by just selling houses. And if the firm is giving it to me, then technically it's offsetting the fees that I'm paying to the firm. So I could argue that I got paid to be at the firm, which is like unheard of. Mm-hmm. And I didn't ever want to go there until I realized that there were actually high achieving producers of real estate sales that were there. Because it did start off, it was heavy recruiting firm. That was what they were known for. Agents went over there, stopped selling houses, and just started recruiting agents, and they got a really bad rep for that. Mm-hmm. And nowadays it's the complete opposite. And so now what's going on in the real estate space is agents are flocking to wherever they can get the most value. Not the cheapest deal, not the best splits, but the most value, because they are starting to understand that, sure, I'll pay a little bit more, but I'm going to actually get more. And if I pay a little more, I can learn more, I sell more, I actually ultimately end up making more money. And then the way that that EXP has it structured, if you sell more, they start rewarding you more with stock that they give you. They'll gift you stock, right? So I pay a $16,000 cap every year to the firm. If I sell another 20 homes after I pay that $16,000, they gift me $16,000 worth of stock. So it's like, and then if back in 2022, 2023, the stock market was kind of in the shitter, and all of that $16,000 worth of stock back then is worth a lot more now. And so that's what's kind of cool about it too. And basically they are so agent first, and they're so from top down. They're just like, we'll take a short-term hit in order to help the agents out with something. So that way, because they understand that like the more agents they have there that are happy there, that are retained and that are staying there, it's better for everyone.
The recruitment piece is nice too, this passive income piece, because it allows you to then get, passive income to invest back into your business.
Right.
Which in turn will hopefully make you more money, right? So it's like you're paying more money for, a videographer, a director of operations, X, Y, and Z, but in turn you're making a ton of great quality content. You're putting a lot more out in the world. You're doing all these different things, and it's allowing you to scale your business, significantly faster than, if you didn't have all those different things. So
right. That's
a super interesting way to look at it. And to your point, sort of paying, they're paying you to be at the firm versus the other way around it. I would assume other, agencies.
Oh yeah. I mean, if I were to compare numbers on two different firms, two of the most popular firms in Charlotte, I could probably show that I would pay 6 figures to the firm just to be there, just to sell houses. And to me, it's like that's multiple staff people I could hire, right? If the revenue share gets big enough, I could literally use that to hire someone to help me build it out even more, right? So that's where it gets really interesting. And there's a lot of really like feel good stories too, where people have helped retire their spouse, or they've helped retire their parents, or they've bought. We were on a call the other day. It was because I'll sit in on some of the recruiting masterminds, and we were on a call, and this guy who lives out in Phoenix, his parents like don't work and are going through a lot of medical issues, and they can't afford to pay these bills. And he literally took 1 month of his $15,000 revenue share check and paid all their bills. And it's like, that's powerful. Mm-hmm. And it's cool when people have stories like that from stuff that a lot of other agents around town think is a bunch of bullshit. It's like, that's very real. And you're not going to do that when you're paying 30% into the firm or 10% to the firm. Where the other piece to that is like, what happens when you stop selling houses? Like, you just stop making money. And this is a good way where it allows people the opportunity for an exit strategy out of sales. And so it's not like something where anyone's trying to do it because they're getting out of sales in a year, but long-term, 10, 15 years from now, whatever it is, 5, 10 years, I have no idea what it'll be. it gives you the ability to make that decision, what you want to do with your business, because it's building out and you're helping agents and growing this other organization. So it's a very interesting setup. And it was something that I realized that all I had to do was just go over there and affiliate with them, and nothing else changes. And it can start changing my life.
What's the biggest difference between the people who are really good at real estate and the ones that are great or become great? Is it that continued education piece that you think you're after and you're seeking out from these mentors, or what would you attribute it to people that make the next, or take the jump to the next level?
That's a really tough question, because initially I'd want to say I have no clue, because that's why I'm not there yet. But I would say I think that they're relentless. Like, they're truly relentless individuals, and they will power through anything, and it's at all costs. They do not care. And it's like, I think there's a big piece of that where it's just, you have to just understand that you're going to get beat down every day. But I think also those people have systems in place. They have operating procedures. They know if this, then that. They've got all this stuff figured out. And whether it's through automations, through Zapier, or through our CRMs have a lot of automation tools now too. Whether it's through stuff like that or through hiring the right people who can implement those things, I think that's a big piece. And that's something that I'm starting to see now, that I have more than just like an assistant with me and it's just a one-man show. It's like, now that I have a few more people around the table working with us, and especially in operations, I think that's like a big piece. Like, you have to build the big enough foundation to then bring in the right people to then go really far. And that's what I think it is. But yeah, I mean, I would, that's actually a really good question. Like, it makes me want to, next time I see a couple of those guys, be like, what is it that like actually got you to this point?
I mean, I think it's the same answer, whether it's real estate, whether it's creating an agency or whatever. I think it's just that fucking tenacity, dude. Like, the refusal to take no for an answer, like that drive that is just rare. You don't see it. It's more of like a 1 in a million characteristic to take it to the next level, right?
It is. And that's where, not to cut you off, but this is something I talk about a lot when I'm hiring and looking for people. Is in real estate, they always ask, like, what is your big why, right? Like, what fuels you every day when you wake up and you don't want to do something, or you're having a shitty day? Like, how are you going to keep going, right? For me, I would rather ask them, like, what are you running from? What is your like biggest fear that you run from every fucking day, right? For me, it was, I did commercial brokerage and went broke, and it messed me up financially for like 5 years. Like, going completely broke set me back for quite some time. And then I got into residential real estate, where I had 3 credit cards that were completely maxed out. And I'd go to lunches, I'd go to dinners, I'd go to drinks, I'd go to events, and you go hand your card to the bartender or the waiter or whoever, and they come back and it's not working. You know why it's not working. They know why it's not working. And everyone's trying to figure out how to make it not embarrassing in front of everyone. And it's embarrassing. And so, I mean, it was a lot of credit card debt, and you're opening, but it was intentional, right? It was for the greater, it was like to build this business. I was investing in myself. I was betting on myself, but it was fucking miserable because you're opening credit cards with 12 months, 0% like balance transfer. And you're moving all this money over because you're paying thousands of dollars in interest. And you can't even afford to like pay down the card, and you're just getting hammered with interest all the time. And opening cards to strategically hit a minimum to then be able to afford the flight to go to your friend's wedding and the bachelor party. And it's like, because you also don't want to say, look, I just can't afford to come. Sorry. Like, I'd love to come. I just don't have the money, which was the truth. So it's like being very creative and strategic with what cards you're opening up, where you're moving things around, how much money you have in different places, which was like nothing, but like where all this stuff is going. And like, I remember like transferring money, like having to pull money out of like my tax savings account that I'm using to pay taxes at the end of the year, which was terrifying, because you're like, I have to make sure I can put it back. Because the last person I wanted to be in debt to was Uncle Sam and the IRS. And so But with all of that, it's like I run from that every fucking day. So to come full circle to when you were like earlier asking, how do I like have that mindset to just like communicate all the time? Like that's it. That's in the back of my mind. It's like, I never want to go back to that. And I refuse to go back to that because I know how shitty it was. I have expensive taste. I like nice things. And I'm willing to put in the work to get that, but I will never fucking go back there. And that's like a huge mindset piece with me, where it's like the what is your big why thing is like, it's really cute and like it makes a lot of sense, but it's like, let's go really deep and like, what do you really like? Is there something that you're running from every day? Like, what is your biggest fear? And like that was very real when you're moving money around, or you're out and you're trying to just get $20 to go, or $100 out of an ATM, and you don't have $100 in your account, and you see $50,000 on one credit card that's just racking up and you're paying interest on. Like it's very real.
Yeah. And it's almost a mindset change of, running from versus running to. I would argue at this point, you're probably running to, abundance, running to, financial freedom and financial success and growing a team and all these different things. So it's a little bit of a mindset change versus, hey, I'm running from, this past thing, but hey, I experienced this, I went through this, I learned a lot from this, and now I'm running to this other thing that is abundance and success and whatnot.
Yeah. And I've never even thought of it that way. And when you say it like that, it's also interesting because for the running from piece, when you're getting started, like think about it. If you're being chased by something, you will run a lot faster. And if you start getting tired or sore or whatever, you will continue running. And if you're running from that, you will absolutely run faster. And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, now I got to run to this. And like that's what will keep you going.
Totally.
So just to like visualize that, it's very interesting when you think about it as a business or as a business owner, or as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but I think you'll always be motivated by what's back there, It's like that never goes away. That's always in the back of your mind. Like, I can't ever go back to that place. I can't ever go back to zero or below zero.
Yeah, literally below zero.
I so appreciate that part of it, though. I'm glad you shared that too, because man, it's just so easy to see people doing well. You're just like, you know what? That's just how they're built. They're built different. They think differently than I do, but that's not the case. Everybody's been through these trials and tribulations. You don't know what the fuck they've been through, because most people are afraid to share that vulnerability. So I appreciate the hell out of that. I told a similar story on the pod a couple weeks ago, how I was down to like $100. And with a homie too, like asking me to go to an event or something. And you just like, at the time I didn't have the balls to say, hey bro, I just don't got it right now.
Yeah.
It's not in the cards for me. And that's a huge piece, is like when you're starting your business, man, like especially early on, you start to see your friends, you're kind of, it seems cool. And it seems like, even if you're doing well, you're probably just getting by. You're figuring shit out, right? The first 2, 3, 4 years, you're just figuring out. You're kind of flatlining. And you see your buddies start to like, they get a new job. They get a new sales job. They're starting to make commission. They're starting to do this, do that. They're on a slow incline. But what's going to happen is they're going to incline, plateau. Whereas you're going to kind of cruise, and then you're going to fucking hockey stick, right? Because you're compounding. So you got to go through the nightmare that is being an entrepreneur and starting that business and fucking being in the trenches for years and years before you really see the reward. So yeah, it's a journey, but I appreciate the sharing of that. Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap?
I think we hit it, man. This was a exciting conversation. Good stories from day one to now, and I'm excited to see where you take it with the new firm and building the team out. So I wish you a ton of success, but totally appreciate, however long it's been, hour and a half, 2 hours of just chopping it up, and I really appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, likewise, brother. Thank you for coming on. And where can everybody check you out? Where should they follow you?
Oh, Instagram, AndyG_realtor.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your support on each and every episode of the Hybrid Human Podcast. It really means the world to us. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe to the channel. Stay up to date with new content moving forward.